What is up, Internet? Welcome back to the Run Your Mouth podcast for the last episode of 2026. And because of some fan feedback, whole show, no news, it's all announcements. We're just talking about this upcoming year, all the things we have going on. Last couple episodes, we went announcement free, and now we got a lot of things that we got to announce and talk about. So off the bat, everybody, linked into the episode description. If you follow this show on any channel other than the Robbie the Fire, all one word on YouTube, please go check out Porching episodes 1 and episode 2. They're in the books. There's about maybe 20 minutes of stand-up across the two episodes. I actually think the sketches are probably better than the stand-up. Whatever. A lot of work went into them. Go give them a click. Go give them a watch. So far, all the feedback's been super positive. So that's the first announcement. We already got one announcement down, and it'll just be another 45 minutes of announcements. What do you guys got planned for the New Year's? What are your goals? What are you guys hoping to accomplish? I don't know about you. This past year, I had days where I worked the hardest I ever did in my entire life, and I also seem to find more time to watch television than I have in any other year of my entire life, which I don't even have a TV in my apartment. It's just off the computer, off the phone. It's like, keeping a nice equilibrium on laziness of working your ass off and then making up for it by just not leaving your apartment and spending significantly way too much time watching television. All right. Other than that, the producer man, he took off for the holidays, and I told him I wanted to do a whole show of announcements, and he didn't generate all that many announcements for me to make, so I might have to get into the news. I was really hoping only to do announcements only, but sometimes you come up with good ideas for what you think the internet will like for a show, and then producer man tells you last minute that he's taking a vacation. All right, we can take some comments. You gotta respect how quickly Runaway Slav manages to pop right onto the chat. Liberteam, porching is gold. There you go. Thank you, sir. Endorsed by Libertime. Libertime? Runaway Slav, Happy New Year. Nothing will be done about scamming Somalias because the head of the FBI is a scamming dot. I don't think you're right about that. I actually think that the FBI is going to dig in, because it makes the Democrats look really bad, and I think that Donald Trump is going to want to dig into these fraud scandals, particularly fraud scandals that play into this is why we can't have immigration into the country. And I think that it would be such a political fumble of the Trump administration, particularly with an opportunity to embarrass Walz, who, ran for VP, so he's one of the more high profile of the Democrats, to not take the opportunity to completely embarrass Walz and to dig into how much fraud exists in the system and how much of it is going just to other countries or by either people who immigrated here or illegal immigrants to this country. Now, listen, the Donald Trump administration, even against political enemies, they fumbled pretty hard. They fumbled against Comey. They fumbled against Letitia James. And there's been a lot of sloppiness by the Donald Trump administration, even on topics that they're like, it was clear that on Epstein they weren't interested. That wasn't a sloppy fumble. That was they got together and were like, how do we brush this one under the rug? And you guys can speculate as to why he wanted to brush under the rug, but it's pretty clear that he did. On some of the other ones, it's clear that it's just general, greatest ever is not the best at being an administrator, not the best at not having ADD and just picking women that he thinks are attractive and will look good on television cameras. That's what he's good at. He's good at making television. He's good at making promises of things being wonderful and then not executing on them. He's good about having ADD and thinking about something for about a week and then just moving on to something else. He's also very good about saying absolutely nothing at all and just letting you know, don't worry, it'll get done, wonderful, best ever, no one's seen anything like it, and then not actually executing on it. But I don't think that the actual administration is looking at these topics and thinking, we don't want to dig in on that one. I think it would be a massive political fumble, especially coming into the midterms, if they've got an opportunity to showcase some of these dumb leftist policies and how much grift that's created and how much money this country's lost and how mismanaged Democratic areas or democratically run areas are. It would just be such a massive political fumble. And I think that there's actually enough news interest in the topic at the moment, as we are going to explore later in the episode, that I will be surprised if they don't at least want to dig in and generate more coverage of fraud. TJ Hawthorne, what's up, TJ? TJ Hawthorne reposted the stream. Thank you, sir. OG Meatballs, yo, long time missing you live, homie. Glad to catch you on this one. Well, nice to have you here. Ben Tack, I think I was on TikTok longer than I was asleep. That can't be good for your brain. I don't waste my time with TikTok, but that cannot be good for your brain. All right, let's get into some topics. Episode brought to you by YoKratom.com, home of the $6 kilo, only place in the entire world. You can get an entire kilo of kratom for just $60. All right, so let's start with this. Listen, I mentioned this on the upcoming part of the problem, and I try not to repeat topics across the two shows because I figure anyone listening here is listening over there. But you do have to think about some of the things that you're thankful for in this past year. And one of the few things that I'm thankful for in Donald Trump is that he decided to declare the economy excellent, and he decided to declare the Epstein story a hoax, and then he also decided to celebrate Rob Reiner's death. And what's nice about these things is that it's really dulled the Trump enthusiasm, and it's dampened the Trump evangelicals that no matter what you were criticizing, no matter what you were saying, they were always coming through, hey, it's 4D chess. Hey, you got to trust the plan. What would you prefer, a Democrat? Oh, if you're criticizing Donald Trump, it's just because you're a Jew and you hate American jobs. And so at least it's nice that he's fumbled enough and lied enough through his teeth that even the quiet supporters who are still all in on Donald Trump after he declared Epstein a hoax and after he started telling you that the economy was doing wonderful and that you're living in the best time that you've ever lived in your entire life. The one nice thing about this year is that I don't have to have as many arguments with these evangelicals because even the most loyal of Donald Trump supporters are not like the autistic kid at Thanksgiving that have the one topic that they want to talk about. And in this case, it was them with Donald Trump. And no matter what you were saying, they were going to give you hell for it. I got to say that the first 6 months of the Donald Trump administration, I thought was the most difficult time to podcast in because I like getting along with conservatives. That's, more than liberals. If liberals are mad at you because you want to call out COVID, you can have 100% confidence in that COVID's wrong, and you can really have 100% confidence in a lot of those topics to just be like, no, you guys are wrong, and if you want to just buffoonishly criticize me for speaking truth, then you're just showcasing the fact that you're a bunch of idiots. But Donald Trump's he's a lot more slippery, and you never know when he's going to pull off a victory, and so he's really tricky to criticize because he doesn't say much, and then you never know when he's going to walk away with a win, and you're going to look like a complete asshole. The Iran situation was a little bit like that, and I was getting so much flack from all the super supporters, so it's nice that within 1 year, he's managed to be so bad that it's like 2 years after COVID and the people that were calling you an idiot for not getting the vax and they finally, might have quietly thought that, but they weren't going to say it out loud and give you hell for that. At least it's nice that the Trump enthusiasm and the honeymoon period of Donald Trump is over and things aren't the greatest that they've ever been. And so, you don't have to take as much shit for just sitting on the sidelines and criticizing what you don't like. All right, what other topics that I have here? On that note, we've got Donald Trump just met with Netanyahu at Mar-a-Lago. They exchanged Christmas gifts. Pardon for Netanyahu, a nice new trophy for Donald Trump. We'll get into that in a minute. But, Donald Trump's latest thing is that if Iran rebuilds, then we will strike. And so is that an admission that they might rebuild? Because remember, Donald Trump declared victory on that. He declared, hey, they were absolutely within breakout of getting a bomb, but thanks to our efforts, you don't have to worry about that anymore. Completely eradicated, and you don't have to worry about the fact that we don't know where the enriched uranium went, or that we might have poked the beehives, and now they might actually be more interested in actually creating a nuclear bomb. And we showcase the fact that we're not going to engage in diplomacy by tricking them and letting them think that we were going to engage in diplomacy. And so now more than ever, they would have an incentive to actually get a bomb. And by the way, even if we completely eradicated their capabilities to do so. They might just be able to buy one off Pakistan or another country. But he declared 100% total victory against Iran. They learned their lesson, and we completely took out their capabilities. So for all you Trump loyalists out there, now that it's 6 months later, and he's being slippery, he's saying, if they do, I'm not saying, and by the way, why is this an if? You're supposed to be the president. You're supposed to be the smartest, the greatest, the most common sense of all time. So you're not sure? See, we've got the most pressing enemy and one of the biggest threats to humanity that's ever existed, and that's this evil regime of Iran. And if Iran were to get a nuclear bomb, they would certainly use it, and it would make the world a worse place. But you're not sure if this horrible enemy and this horrible risk might be escalating? How are you unsure of that? I'm just saying, how can you hold both of these lies true at the same time? That Iran is the worst regime ever, they're an enemy of both us and Israel, and it is intolerable for them to get a bomb, and I have the greatest intelligence agencies of all time, but I'm actually not sure where they're at. If they might, I don't know if they currently are. I can't share any information at this time. All right, we've got more. You know, the producer man's off the clock, and so I drummed up some topics because I'm off tomorrow. But here's an important one. If any one of you out there are looking to monetize your children, you know, you fell on tough economic times this past year, and you're wondering what you can do to, you know, just boost your income a little bit. You're thinking about maybe, should I drive an Uber on the weekend? Should I start selling my sperm? Should I start selling my hair? Should I sell my girlfriend's socks? You're barely scraping by, and you're trying to figure out what you can do to just generate a little bit of side cash. I am here with the quickest and easiest way to monetize an asset that was otherwise just sitting in your house, eating your food, and just draining your resources. And that's, you can rent your children to Somalian daycares out in Minnesota, because now they're, after being showcased on film of having empty daycare centers, they're apparently shipping in vans of kids to the learning center. Well, no, it wasn't leaning center. What was the word? Leering. And maybe those kids are learning how to leer. You know, for all of us criticizing on the internet, maybe they've learned, because we've all been in government offices and they give you shit, but are you good at leering at them? Do you have a good stare that puts a government employee on in their place and lets them know, hey, listen, I'm not the guy that you want to not process his paperwork? Because listen, you and I, we didn't go to leering school. For all you know, if you went to leering daycare as a child, you would have a stare that put the fear of God into government officials, that when you were trying to get a business license, like think about how many honest ventures you've engaged in where the government might have turned you down. Maybe it was a permit, maybe it was a license for your building, and sadly, you didn't go to Somalian leering school, and so you didn't know how to properly stare at a government employee. So really, there's two things to think about here. If you do have kids, maybe you need to put them into the leering centers so that they can learn how to stare at people and get their way, and put the fear of God into them so that the government processes their paperwork efficiently and sends them free money. But also, you know, if your kids are off from school, they're not really up to much, all that much. They're just watching too much television. They're spending too much time on the tablets. They're giving you a hard time. Maybe thinking about making a couple extra dollars by renting them to Somalian van drivers so that they can circle around the Somalian schools and pretend like there's actually kids at those schools. Listen, I understand it's tough times for everybody, even though Donald Trump's telling you it's the most incredible economy of all time. So just trying to put out some suggestions for you on how you might be able to make a couple extra dollars if you were looking to do so. All right, another quick topic, but we can take some comments. Let's take some comments. Let's see what's the things are going nuts in here. We got a lot going on. All right. Did you see Adam Mockler's debunking coverage of the Minnesota fraud vid from Shirley? No, but give me the deets, because I did even question. I actually went to Grok and just asked, hey, do they happen to go to these places over Christmas break, and they actually exist and there were just no kids there? And it came back as no, there's no evidence of that, but I'm very open to if that civilian journalist was actually doing bad journalism. But it to my eye, the 30 minutes that I watched was entertaining, and it did seem like there were empty buildings and people out there saying that they never see any kids out there. But I'm open to a good debunking. I didn't swear allegiance to that thing as being 100% accurate. It's no sweat off of me to admit that that thing was a big old hoax. So if you've got evidence of it, let me know. OG matzo balls. U2 governor got Slav shadow banned. Always have to hit all messages to see you. I think everything I got is shadow banned. So we're deep in the shadow ban matrix. If you're specifically watching my show and also trying to read Runaway Slav's comments, but I read most of them. Runaway Slav, the Judaic calendar is so wacky. They are on the year 57886. Yet for them, Tehran atomically arming is weeks away, is 30 years on the Christian Julian Georgian calendar. There you go. That's some autism when people start getting into the importance of calendars and dates. Play by the rules, saying we are all shadow banned. Yes, we're like ghosts. We're the internet ghosts who come together for the Run Your Mouth podcast, so we don't have to feel like we're totally stuck in foreign realms, but at least there's fellow travelers. Adam Sutton. Adam Mackler is a liar and the worst Adam on the planet. That would be fun if they did an annual award of the worst person with every name on the planet. You know what I mean? Like if there was the worst Peter of the Year award, best Peter of the Year award, best John of the Year award, worst John of the Year award. People had to actually show up in front of a commission and defend themselves for not being the best John or actually being the best John. That would be more fun than the Oscars. All right. Now, as Donald Trump flirts with having wars with everybody, I don't know if I spoke about this on the last episode. Maybe I'm repeating myself here. But I don't know if you guys saw his plans for his giant boats. I don't know if you guys think that these giant boats will ever be made. I don't know how much money he's going to put into the giant boats, and then maybe the next administration comes around and goes, we don't need giant boats. But he's very excited for his giant boats that are going to dominate the ocean. And after what we've seen in the Ukraine war this past year, does anyone think that massive items are the way to win wars in the future? It feels like it's all going robotics and drones, and the game of warfare is going to be how cheap of a drone can I have that can destroy your very expensive item, and being able to bleed, unless you go nuclear, but it seems like it's going to be a game of how can I bleed you dry, of that you've got a billion-dollar or multi-million-dollar tank that I managed to destroy with a $2,000 drone. And if I was the United States military looking at future warfare, I would be in the game of basically cybersecurity and the cheapest drones that can, swarm people and create the most maximum damage. I would be investing in sea drones nonstop of, all right, China outbuilt us on these massive boats. How do we make massive boats irrelevant in the ocean? And for all of this talk about, well, we're going full steel and these are going to be the strongest and most powerful boats, just the idea that 6 years out, which even if 6 years out they finally have these things in the ocean, they're going to be the most incredible deterrent, more than the nuclear deterrent. But I guess if you have some sort of actual war with someone and you need to police waterways and you want to scare everyone that you've got these giant boats, I can't for 1 second think why in 6 years from the future, giant boats are going to be better than really awesome and cheap drones. I mean, instead of blasting, if you're already going to be blasting random boats out of, why not have like drones that can just attach themselves to it, track the thing, and blow them up when everyone gets off of it or whatever, or collect the evidence of the fact that they're actually engaging in drug trafficking, and then you can just arrest the people when they actually show up in this country. Just seems like a foolish waste of money, but Donald Trump's very excited about his giant boats. All right, and then last of the short topics, and then we'll get into some of the slides that I have. Might be a shorter episode. I talked about this on Part of the Problem, but, there might be 3 people here that don't listen to that show. And now you guys get advanced because, this is like living in the future because Part of the Problem won't be released for a couple hours. But I've noticed something in the news that sometimes things grab the public interest. And when they grab the public interest, people's teeth start to sink in. And then the actual mainstream publications and everything have to actually dig into topics because it's top of mind for everybody, and then they don't really go away. And so it seems to me, I don't think the Epstein storyline's going away that quickly. The best example is what happened with Bill Cosby. Bill Cosby, apparently that story had been around forever. And then you've got Hannibal Buress makes a joke. The joke makes it into the newspaper. Black comic is criticizing Bill Cosby. Suddenly you're allowed to write on it. And then the guy's in jail not that long after and then let off because we've got a corrupt Justice Department and he had been previously given a non-prosecution immunity deal if he had given them some information on something. And so then he later got let out of jail. But it hit a critical mass of people being aware of it. That's kind of what happened in all of Me Too, was suddenly like the newspapers writing about this stuff. Everyone's outraged. They took out a couple individuals, rightfully or wrongfully, and then at some point we moved on. But if things just kind of capture enough interest from enough people, they don't really go away. And it seems like this fraud story is of interest to everybody because we're all like, whoa, wait, what's going on here? You're telling me I'm slaving away trying to work a job and there's just millions of dollars going to people who aren't from this country or are frauding our government? And so I don't think the storyline is going away that quickly. And luckily, it came about just from a random guy. I mean, he might have a pretty big YouTube channel. I never heard of him before, but went out there and actually drummed up good news footage, showcased the fraud in an obvious way that's unignorable. And it had me thinking, because we've watched the internet sleuth a lot of topics. I think the best example of this is there was that documentary where the internet figured out the guy who was like torturing cats. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? I never watched the documentary because I'm not going to watch some documentary about a dude who was torturing cats. But there was some dude who was posting footage online of him torturing cats. And then the internet just went to work. They figured out the outlet style. They muck-cracked the case and they busted the guy. And the point I'm trying to make is that the hive mind of the internet, of when the collective internet grabs into an issue and really wants to work on an issue, seems to be pretty good at kind of debunking things. I don't think there's any better resource than the hive mind on the internet of if you actually give people the ability to dig into a topic. There's some nerds out there who really like to debunk things and really like to dig in. We don't always know who's the smartest at this stuff. I assure you, it's not the detective at the FBI who gets assigned to a case. And so if you created a platform where the entire general internet was actually incentivized to dig in and debunk these things, I really think we could clean a lot of them up. And that's why I think I had a good idea here. And you guys can tell me why maybe this is a very stupid idea. But Donald Trump, for whatever reason, was not interested in Doge. Some of you guys, I know he's made statements, the spirit of Doge carries on, and some of you guys still think he's a fiscal conservative and he's actually interested in cleaning up the government. Not only does Donald Trump want to spend more money than any president ever and also want to lower the interest rates, for some reason, he wasn't all that interested in getting all the fraud and abuse out of the government, which even includes storylines of massive amounts of money going to Democratic NGOs that, at a minimum, if they're not just undermining all of us in the general public, you can at least say that they're undermining conservative causes. And for some reason, he wasn't all that interested in getting all of that fraud and abuse out of the system. So here's my thought. Let's create a new government program, and I call it 10%. You ready? 5% goes to you if you can prove fraud, and 5% goes to the court that actually sees the cases. And that way we get the courts well-funded, that they actually want to see and prosecute these cases, and they can keep hiring more and more judges and, you know, whatever they need to actually process these court cases. There's not a logjam on it. And if you've got a law firm, you've got forensic accounting skills, let's take all the government budgets, let's make as much of it publicly available as possible, and give people the opportunity that if you can prove that there's fraud and abuse and the government saves money from it, you get 5% of whatever the savings were in the first year. So, like, for example, on Somalia thing, if you had some daycare that's supposed to be getting $1 million a year for the next 10 years, so you're getting 5% of the first year, which that should be quick and easy math. But sometimes when you're talking real quick and your brain's flowing, you don't feel like doing the math. You guys in the comments, you can tell me what the math is. Anyways, I feel like we could get rid of all government fraud and abuse within a year if we did that. And then you can have some people who might even be currently unemployed making some big checks, and government can save 90%. And then who knows, how much of the government budget do you think is just being wasted on just utter and complete fraud? If you guys just had to speculate on how much money do you think we could clean up 20% of the budget if we just got rid of all the fraudulent spending? I feel like, give people out of work an opportunity, or law firms that have the time on their hands, forensic accountants that have the time on their hands, and maybe one guy, maybe Morgan and Morgan just opens up an apartment and they end up collecting all of those billions of dollars. But at the end of the day, it's still saving the taxpayers. If you guys just open it up to the market. Just open it up and be like, guys, whatever amount of money that you save us. I think they do this for reporting people to the IRS, which that's lousy. If someone's skipping out on their taxes, don't be so, you don't want to be the whiny kid who's busting them for that. But if we got people who are just totally fraudulently robbing the public purse and sending money abroad and pretending like they're running social services that they're not, I don't think you're being a dickwad or a tattletale if you're letting the government know, hey, why is this guy just getting a paycheck for absolutely no reason? And, let people actually dig in, do the homework, do the work that the government's not doing, make the whole entire FBI, the Palantirs, and all these people, just put them to shame. Put them to shame when you show what competent individuals in the free market can do at 5% returns on debunking the fraud. And who knows, maybe even Elon Musk wants that paycheck. Maybe Elon Musk calls up Big Balls and go, hey man, I'll give you all the resources you need and we can split this, because what did he claim to find? $130 billion of fraud or whatever? Even Elon Musk, that 5% check or to Big Balls, that's got to be a nice payday. All right, let's take some comments and let's get into some other stuff. And why not plug one more sponsor, Sheath.com. Guys, been a long-running sponsor on the Run Your Mouth podcast. We are lucky to have them here. I got to talk to those guys and Ukraine as well, see if we can keep them on for another year of the Run Your Mouth podcast, but keeps it motivating. And I got to hang out with Bobby the Bank the other week. Do truly appreciate the support of all the sponsors, and it's nice to have such great products behind the show. I wear my sheaths every day. When they go on sale, I load up myself. You can use my promo code RYM. You get 20% off the greatest underwear that's ever graced the balls of man, or just shoot them an email. Just shoot them an email. Let them know you still got your original pairs. You love the product. You love hearing about them on the show. And if you've never tried them out, you've never stepped up your game, I promise you this is the best pair of underwear you've ever worn in your entire life. I didn't like boxer briefs. I didn't like that bunchy feeling. I didn't like that it was like grabby at me. Sheath, it's wonderful. Keeps everything cool, calm, separated. I don't personally use the sheath pouch, but that is their whole thing. If you're into, if you want to be able to put your penis into a hole without having sex and have it be in there all day, separated from your balls, you find me another product like Sheath Underwear that's going to let you live that dream. All right, let's take a couple comments and then let's move on to our other topics. A-Fix. Hey, friends. Hope everyone is well. Merry Hanukkah, Robbie, and Happy New Year. Thank you, and to you as well. Notice Store, Trump the Rump Miller. Vance eating Japanese squid, sashimi ink, and Chipotle with a real whole milk milkshake. That's a human centipede we would pay to see. I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Me Undies has briefed that don't have any hole at all. I don't even know that was a thing. The girlfriend got me some laughing my ass off. It's time to dump that girl and get a better girlfriend who understands the value of sheath underwear. So, that's on you for not having a better girlfriend. I blame you, not your chick. All right, let's get into some topics, and let's start with this. I actually, with my own ADD, I already mentioned this, but I can read it and repeat myself. It's not that bad. I don't repeat myself that much. I hope they're not trying to build up again. This is from The Hill, and this was after Trump's meeting with Netanyahu, addressing the situation in Iran. So he says, I hope that they're not trying to build up again, because if they are, we're going to have no choice but very quickly to eradicate that buildup, the president said during the press conference. And once again, how are you unsure about this? All right. Now we've got from the BBC, Ukraine denies drone attack on Putin's residence. And you've got to respect a good old, wasn't me. You got to respect that on the highest levels of our existence on planet Earth is people in very powerful positions pulling Bart Simpson and just going, wasn't me. I don't know who did it. You go look at someone else. They're making it up. Never happened. It's amazing that on the highest levels of our existence is still people just going, wasn't me. Don't know what you're talking about. Maybe someone else did it. Maybe you want to call Charlie. Maybe you got to call this guy. I had nothing to do with it. But, it's the problem of just the ongoing tensions, Ukraine, Russia, allowing things to escalate, allowing people to just die for no reason, people with cooler heads not stepping in and just being like, guys, why don't we just have peace instead of war? And why do we keep flirting with a bigger escalation, bigger fight? But apparently, the claims are by the Russians that Ukraine sent over drones to actually attack Putin's home and that they shot down the drones. And you've got Ukraine responding, wasn't me. And then you got Donald Trump going, it was a good thing that I didn't give them the Tomahawk missiles because now is not the time for this kind of stuff. Which also, I thought giving Tomahawk missiles to them was Donald Trump's idea. It's funny to like flirt with doing something and then congratulate yourself for not doing the thing that you were flirting with doing. All right, and then we've got, of course, Donald Trump got together with Netanyahu. It's Donald Trump's annual review. You got to sit down and get some review about how much money you're sending over to these people, how much support you're giving to them, whether or not you're sending them enough to support their initiatives of war with everybody. And so this is the way it works with Donald Trump now. If you're going to show up and visit Donald Trump, you got to make sure to have a nice prize for him. And if you don't currently have a prize that makes sense for him, you just got to invent another prize. This is what world leaders are telling each other. Listen, it's like bringing a bottle of wine when you're a house guest somewhere. If you're showing up and you're going to pay Donald Trump a visit at Mar-a-Lago, you got to make sure that you're bringing him a nice prize. And so, like I said, it was Christmas. They're exchanging gifts. You've got Donald Trump promising a gift of a pardon to Netanyahu, which, why are we doing this? I understand why we're doing it, but if this guy's actually a totally corrupt politician, why do we want to why do we want to live in a world where corrupt politicians just always get away with everything? Oh, well, what Netanyahu did in Gaza was so wonderful, we really should overlook all the other crimes that he committed of grift before he started that war. And really, we should all, after he saved humanity by bombing the shit out of Gaza, are we really going to punish this guy for his previous... it would be like if aliens actually came to Earth and Netanyahu flew up in a fighter jet himself and managed to shoot down the alien drones, maybe we would all turn around and go, all right, you know what? Let's not dig into the fraud. You might even not let him continue to be prime minister. You might be like, listen... You did some stuff, you can't be prime minister anymore, but we're not going to punish you because you did save planet Earth from an alien invasion. But what did he actually do that has Donald Trump going, you know what, we're going to get involved with the politics of another country and the court systems of another country and ensure that this world leader is not prosecuted for crimes that he may or may not have committed and kept the country in a war so that he wouldn't have to actually face, the accusations of those crimes. And it was for bombing Gaza. That's the incredible thing that Netanyahu did that Donald Trump thinks he should be off the hook from having to face these charges. And now you got Donald Trump. He's also renaming everything, which, listen, Donald, I'll sell you the rights to my apartment. I'll call it the Donald Trump Institute for America. How many more things? This can't be the end of what Donald Trump's going to rename in his name. But here you have Donald Trump renaming the Lincoln Center, the Donald Trump and John F. Kennedy. I'm sorry, it was the Kennedy Memorial Center. So now it's the Donald Trump. Every single, instead of like the George Washington Bridge, call it the Donald Trump and George Washington Bridge. He might as well just slap his name on top of everything. Just to remind us about how great he is, because sometimes you wake up in the morning, you don't remember how great Donald Trump is, and sometimes it's important if you can get a reminder. All right, enough bashing the conservatives. Let's watch Tim Walz. I believe that this is him responding to the most recent allegations of fraud out in Minnesota. Producer man's off this week, so I didn't take the time to fact check it. And this could be bad journalism by Fox News of making it seem like this was Tim Walz's response to that kid who showcased the fraud that was going on in Minnesota. And maybe he had made these comments earlier, and these are not being properly tied together. Producer man's out this week, so I'm not sure. But with that said, let's roll the tape, because we're seeing damning evidence of Tim Walz's absolute negligence of the public purse while pitching to all of us, hey, I'm the nice guy, and as long as you let me forcibly take money from rich people, I'll make sure to provide for the poor. And then he actually just hands it to Somalian immigrants so that they could send it over to Somalia. So here's his response to the allegations. Roll the clip.
This is what happens when they target communities for their own benefit. This is what happens when they scapegoat. And this is what happens when they no longer hide the idea of white supremacy.
So it sounds to me, Nick, that Governor Tim Walz.
There you go. Guys, this is white supremacy run amok. Even if it's true, and even if I really mess this up, and even if I create an environment where these people can move here, and I made it easy for them to defraud people, and as I see, that's a good comment from Runaway Slav, white men need to be held accountable, and this is a white man being held accountable. Even if all those things are true, the only reason you're hearing about it is because of white supremacy. I mean, you guys watched the video. Was there any flavor of the video of that journalist that painted any picture of white supremacy? I mean, what crimes of government can we go after, or what fraud can we showcase, particularly when it comes to illegal immigration in this country, if just pointing this one out is considered white supremacy? If you're going to link this to white supremacy, is there any criticism? Like if a legal immigrant kills people and I start saying, why do we have illegal immigrants in the country? Does that make me a white supremacist now? What crime can you point out by immigrants into this country that would not be white supremacy? I mean, I'm just saying, if you're going to link this one to white supremacy, what can you call out that wouldn't be white supremacy? This is TJ Hawthorne, who actually lives out in Minnesota. Maybe got some more of the facts on the ground of what's actually going on there. Remember, this is the guy they had running for VP. I know that's the problem when everyone's got to find someone who's even dumber than they are, which is why Joe Biden took Kamala Harris. And then Kamala Harris was like, all right, I need someone even worse than me. And so she picked Tim Walz. It's kind of like at some point, if you're so fat, you can only find someone so fat to stand next to you to make you look a little bit thinner. And so you start going down and down that command chain of Democrats of trying to find people even dumber than you are. And that's how they got stuck with Tim Walz. All right. And listen, I don't do a lot of wardrobe analysis on the Run Your Mouth podcast, but I guess speaking to Slav's earlier point about whether or not the feds are actually going to dig in, I did notice this video, which is apparently you've got people are now going out and from the government and actually investigating the frauds of these businesses. And why do you just have a thing taped onto the back of a jacket? Is that really the best we can get for our law enforcement? Is just like, I'm starting to agree with Kash Patel here of I need the right wardrobe if I'm going to get out there on the field. I'm just saying if I owned a business and someone walked in with something taped on their back of their jacket, I'm like, yeah, go get like a badge and a warrant and something that actually makes you look like you're actually from the government, because this looks like I'm being scammed right now. Did you guys, this is the best that they got for these guys? I mean, that looks like they don't even have matching police HSI whatever banners on the back of their jacket. Or is it like, or is that some sort of government overtime scam where they've got like hundreds of like these cross projects of a banner that you slap on the back of your jacket and you pretend like you're doing something while you're clocking the overtime hours? But, you know, for all you guys that think that there's nobody who's ever in government actually going to debunk this, you know, I don't dress particularly well, but there's something cartoonish about a government official with the badge of the division that they're at or whatever service they're on is literally just taped onto the back of a jacket. Or maybe that's how much they didn't care up until yesterday when someone's like, hey, we have to care about this. And it's very government about them. We're like, well, within our police force, we have no department that's actually assigned to this kind of police work. And they're like, wait, so no one cares about fraud? They're like, nah, that's not usually we're just work on tickets and DUIs and, you know, ruining white Americans' lives. Who just want, you know, and so we've got nothing for that. And then they had to come up with the name. I don't know what HSI stands for. And they're like, well, you know, we got to buy that from another government department. So we're not going to actually get those jackets in for another 6 years. And they're like, all right, we'll just tape something onto the back of our coats. All right, so there were, like I said, sometimes when the internet hooks their teeth into something, you get other publications that actually want to get in on the action and not look like the internet's the only ones that do any journalism. And so you had some other articles over the last couple days about other massive fraud and abuse in government social services. This was from the New York Post. $5 billion in questionable rental assistance under Biden revealed, including to thousands of deceased tenants and 9 non-citizens, HUD report. And then they had another article, false refugee study used by Dems to justify open borders and massive spending. And, I've heard multiple times that, I even think that libertarian who debated Dave was running with this one, that essentially there's a net benefit, and that these people who immigrate into the country legally or illegally are, working jobs, and they're not actually just using up social services, and they're not just spending all of our money, and that it's a net gain when they come here. I don't know if he made that argument. I don't know if it was exactly along those lines, but I've just heard that kind of thing floated. And sometimes it's a little bit like that global warming study that got retracted a little bit. Sometimes people throw information at you and you're just like, I don't think that's right, but I'd have to actually dig into that study and see what kickers they were using to present that information as accurate. I don't know if you guys ever watched this video. It was one of my better moments, but I debated an entire room that hated me about COVID. It was at at an event in Brooklyn. And at one point, someone started yelling at me that windmills are more efficient than fossil fuels. And I'm like, where are you reading that? Like, you might be talking about during the most ideal weather, and but when the weather's not perfect, there could be 1 hour of a day on one hill. It's the same as the solar panels. Yes, there are certain times that solar panels are efficient, but in the overall, you can't rely on them. They don't store energy well enough, and you still need to use fossil fuels. But the guy just said it to me as fact, and I was like, I don't think that's true, but I'd have to actually read that study and tell you why it's false. And so this was one of those ones where I've heard people float this, and I was like, that just doesn't sound accurate. And so here was a breakdown from the New York Post on why it wasn't inaccurate. It was an opinion piece also from the New York Post. And just to give you the short, there were some crucial categories of expenses. Off the top of head, I know it was English language training and some others that were just excluded from the studies, which it's always the kickers. It's always just the things that you don't include. And then you go, yeah, well, if we don't include all these things that we spend money on, we're actually not spending that much money on these people. All right, let's cover a couple more, and then I will take your comments, and we will call it an episode. 75 U.S. deportees to end up on tiny island and cash deal with local rulers. The name of the island is Palu. I never heard of it, but it would be funny if these guys end up loving it out there. If the people who don't have a country that will take them back, and we've been trying to figure out where the hell we can deport them to, are actually being sent to a beautiful tropical paradise. It'd be nice to check up on. I would love it. Talk about independent journalism and some good film crew action is to go out there and see the lives of the illegal immigrants who we finally figured out where to resettle them to, and they ended up in this little tiny island called Palu. All right, and then I think this will be the last topic for today, but there was a New York Post article, Jeffrey Epstein's shocking Amazon purchase history revealed in GeoDay's latest file releases, including school uniforms and kinky items. And I know that this is disgusting, but you have to figure that Epstein was a complete and total creep, and this man's having a fair amount of sex. And so if he's out there and he's buying sex toys, maybe he's buying the good stuff. Because maybe, he's not having sex with the best people or in the best way, but he's really stretching how gross you can get and how much sex you can have. And so he might know something that you don't in terms of what products might be good. And some of the ones that this man was purchasing is insane. Firstly, you're buying how small is your penis that you have to have sex with underage girls and then put them on Vagifirm before you can enjoy having sex with them? There were rumors of this guy's egg-shaped penis, but you got to wonder just how horrific this man's penis is, that not only does he want to have sex, apparently, allegedly, with underage, inexperienced women, but apparently he also wants to put them on Vagifirm to make sure that they could have some resemblance of a grip. And then this one's also shocking. You would think like if you were a man who was going through this much trouble to be having sex with individuals, that you must have a very high sex drive. And then you got to wonder, well, why does he need prostate health center? Like, is this guy actually sitting around at home? He's like, shit, I already bought that kid, and now my dick's not going to work. Ghislaine, can you get me another prostate massager and a Blue Chew and some Veggie Health? Because, you know, I already purchased this. I don't want this to go to waste. And then this one was also shocking. If you're looking for more evidence of the fact that he's sleeping with kids, you're going to tell me that a rich adult's favorite pasty is ring dings? Listen, I'll eat trash junk food from the gas station across the street from my house at 1 a.m. because I'm not drinking at home. I can't fall asleep. I'm bored. I worked all day, and, you know, I don't keep junk food in the house, but there's a gas station directly across the street that is basically an overpriced kitchen cabinet at my kitchen at this point. And even I'm not eating the ring dings. Maybe once a year I'll go for the yodels and be like, that was delicious, but then really hate myself. But, like, there's no way this otherwise fit individual is stocking up on ring dings. All right. Trump claims he's going back to the moon. I don't really care. Police are now using drones to give people tickets. Don't really care about that either. Let's take a couple comments, and then we've got one last thing we can call it a episode. Runaway Slav. Palau is what Australia used to use as a legal detention center back when they actually enforced immigration laws. Oh, is it one big prison island? Is it like Devil's Island back in the day? Fix. New 2025 theory. Pedo oligarchs also support war because that's the best way to create large populations of vulnerable and easily disappeared people. That's why I warned this year. Warhawks equal pedos. That's a reasonable theory. Robbie, do you like trains? I'm not excited by trains. I kind of hate taking the train into New York City because I did it so many years when I was doing stand-up comedy. The thought of having to take the train kind of sucks. I prefer, I prefer just being able to drive on my car, being able to leave on my own schedule on the road. I've yet to find a route where taking the train made more sense than other forms of travel. So no, I'm not particularly excited by trains. I'm not sure if that was maybe an autistic joke or maybe a joke about threesomes or something else that went over my head. But no, I'm not really a train enthusiast. All right. Let's see. We got any other comments here? If not, we can call it an episode. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for hanging out. We got one more topic. When will Robbie be back on Rap now that it's back live on Mondays at 4 p.m. Eastern? I would like to get on Rap, particularly to plug Porching episodes 1 and Porching episode 2. I got to follow up with Shannon or maybe send Lewis a text directly because I would like to do that, and I would like to plug my recent projects. All right, everybody, I hope you have the greatest year of your life. I hope whatever you're making your personal commitments for, you find the strength or a higher power gives you the strength, you're able to accomplish it. If you haven't already, please go to the Robbie the Fire channel. Make that your YouTube commitment. I mean, your commitment for 2026 is to subscribe to Robbie the Fire on YouTube. The Run Your Mouth channel, I'm not taking it down. The archive of the episodes that I did over there will remain over there. I might do one last live stream just to say goodbye to the channel, but Run Your Mouth will no longer be over there. So if you've been a long-time watcher over there, please migrate over to the Robbie the Fire channel. Or if you're a person who just listens to the show on Spotify or other locations, just put up a whole bunch of stand-up stuff, including my porching project. So please subscribe to the channel, leave a nice comment, rate, review, subscribe. All right, and now to close out the episode, because listen, it's been a rough year for a lot of us. Not everyone's doing the best they can financially. A lot of you guys were super excited for Donald Trump, and he hasn't pulled through in, the biggest and most fantastic and greatest and biggest and largest ways ever. And so I thought it might be nice to close out 2025 with a spiritual moment on the Run Your Mouth podcast. And that's why together I would like to all join Kilmar Abrego Garcia in Christian prayer.
Cuando no estés en calma y no tengas que atravesar, llama a este hombre con fe, solo él trabajo tú tengas que pasar. Llama siempre a ese hombre que te va a ayudar. En la hora más difícil es cuando él te ve. Llama siempre a ese hombre que tiene poder. Si tú pasas por el fuego no te vas a quemar. Y si pasas por las aguas no te ahogarás. Pasa como Israel que el mar atravesó. Y en el nombre del Señor.
So everyone, just remember, if you're feeling down, you can go out there and join Kilmar Abrego Garcia in Christian Mexican songs to bring more goodness into your life. That is our episode. Have a great new year, everybody. Catch you probably on Friday. Got some big guests coming up. You know, like I said, a lot of announcements this week. We're gonna do an episode with Gene Epstein of some 2026 economic predictions, and then David Collin put out another end of year article, which he does every year, and I will be having him on. I guess a week from today. I think it's about a week from today. We're going to do an episode with him on that. I do recommend. This year was a little bit more financially oriented than other years, but I'm definitely going to be picking his brain on some topics that he didn't include in his end of year thing. And I look forward to that every year. All right.